Hello, my name is Rafael Ortiz, and in this learning video we are going to see punctuation marks, which is very important in academic writing and in writing in general. We will see the most typical punctuation marks such as period, comma, colon, semicolon, some differences between them, hyphen and dash, brackets, and exclamation and question marks. The objective is to use the different punctuation marks correctly and to know the functions and uses of them. The period normally implies a stop. That's why it is also known as full stop, and it's put at the end of a sentence, declarative or statement, a declarative sentence or a statement, not after question marks. For example, this paper discusses the applications of nanotechnology. Then we stop the idea and put a period or full stop. Comma is probably the most difficult punctuation mark to use in academic writing. It implies a small pause or gap anywhere in the sentence of a text for clarification and to make the ideas clear. It breaks up different parts of the sentence, and it is used wherever we want to group ideas to make it easier to understand, to be understood by readers. It serves different purposes, such as grouping items, separating sentences or phrases, separating words in a list, for example, or splitting two parts of a linked idea. And the misuse or overuse of commas can lead to problems of misunderstandings or problems of meaning. Here we have some examples of the use of commas. After the French Revolution had taken place, many other European countries were concerned about civil unrest. Here we have two different ideas. And also we have many scientists believe in evolution, although some are trying to disprove Darwin's theory of evolution. In this case, we have a link that helps the function of a comma. We have a specific type of comma, which is called the Oxford comma, and it's used whenever we find three or more items in a list, in a sequence, and we put it before the last item in the list to avoid confusion. I'm going to give a very clear, specific example. For example, if we say, I love my parents, Luis García Montero and Almudena Grandes, the comma there may imply that my parents are Luis García Montero and Almudena Grandes, who actually were married. But in order to avoid this meaning, we use the Oxford commas, and we would write, I love my parents, comma, Luis García Montero, comma, Oxford comma, and Almudena Grandes. This is a specific use of comma. A very important thing to take into account is that we must never separate the subject from the verb with a comma. It is a typical mistake. We have an incorrect use of comma here, but the correct thing would be without a comma. The report containing the last updates has been completed. Then we cannot put a comma between updates and has been, because it separates the subject and the verb. Colon is the next punctuation mark. The parts of the sentences that it helps to separate normally are not necessarily complete sentences, and a colon is normally used to introduce a list or to link to sentences from the point of view of the topic, or to draw out a conclusion. Here we have three examples. The results of the indoor team games were as follows. Then you use the colon and introduce a list. Or to link thematically. You have psychological studies into domestic violence are usually centered on an idea of the nuclear family, and then you have another sentence with a topic. Or to draw a conclusion. language acquisition is a difficult but immensely rewarding task. Then the conclusion, without it, there is little hope for global communication. Semicolon is different because it is halfway between a comma and a full stop. And it serves to the function of linking sentences that are related somehow. Also to link sentences that are in opposition to each other. In this case, the link is opposition. Or to separate items in a list sometimes, when the separation is a bit more elaborate than with a comma. And here we have several examples of this use. We must not confuse comma and semicolon. It is important to differentiate. A comma separates items in a list, but normally does not differentiate two different sentences from each other, which is the function of the semicolon. That's why it would be incorrect to say the engineers had never tried this material. They tried it here out of curiosity. In this case, a semicolon is the correct punctuation mark, because both clauses are independent. Or we can use a comma with a linking word. And this is another alternative. Sometimes, depending on whether the sentences, the phrases are dependent or independent, we use a comma or a semicolon. Colon can also be confused with semicolon. A colon introduces an explanation, an example, instances of the idea, or another phrase that explains the previous idea. Whereas the semicolon is used as a pause, as we said, a little stronger than a comma, but not as definite and strong as a period, where two clauses are related somehow to one another. So we don't have to confuse them. Here we have some examples of the use of a colon and semicolon, but here we have a typical mistake. Instead of saying he bought the following food items, semicolon, burger and Coke, here we would use a colon because we're giving examples. Other punctuation marks are a hyphen or a dash. They're similar, but the hyphen is shorter than a dash. A hyphen normally separates parts of a compound word, such as in the examples. The proposed methodology is problem-based learning, or a new state-of-the-art laboratory has or was set up. A dash, on the other hand, is similar, but it serves a different function. It is used instead of commas or parentheses to set off a parenthetical element in a sentence. For example, driving at night, especially in the rain, can be dangerous. Brackets are also important in academic writing. The most important types there are 4 types of them, but the most widely used ones are parentheses. To separate parenthetical information. What does it mean? Extra information, information that is not necessary, as like in the example here. Or when we refer to our sources in the text or other sources outside the text. This is a very typical use in academic writing. And also we have square brackets, which are less widely used. They add something or someone change the emphasis or comment on within a direct quotation. For example, explain something within a quotation. Or it is also used to enclose the 3 dots that symbolize, in a quotation, symbolize elliptical part, something that has been omitted. Curly brackets and angle brackets are much more specific. Specifically, angle brackets are used in technical contexts and also to enclose email addresses or website addresses, but they are not widely used. And exclamation marks imply an exclamation, a surprise, but they are not normally used in technical or academic writing texts. Whereas question marks are used after a question in direct speech, and they're widely used in academic writing, for example, when given hypotheses or research questions. In conclusion, punctuation is very important to clarify ideas. They help to make the structure of a text very clear, which is crucial, and to understand the function of the different marks is very important. Punctuation in brief. Use a comma when you want to pause, semicolon when you want to break, and a colon to connect two sentences, or a full stop to end or put a finish to your idea. Thank you very much.